Yo, how's it going, guys? Christian Loza here with How It's Done podcast, and today for our episode, it's a very special one. This weekend is our ninth annual First Class Fitment show, put on by Canibeat at Princeton Airport, and who I have right here beside me is a good friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, Dave Tormey. How's it going, man?
Great. How are you doing, man?
Pretty good, dude. So, uh, as I said, this is a special episode, and before we like jump into things and talk about the show and all that stuff, let's talk a little bit about you, man. So, for those listening that don't know, tell us about yourself, like who you are and where you're from and all that stuff.
Sure. Hi everyone. My name's Dave Tormey. I'm the events director for Canibeat, and once a year we host an annual event called First Class Fitment. And as Christian mentioned, this is our ninth annual event coming up this weekend on October 13th. And outside of that, I'm an avid car photographer. That sounds weird, but yeah, I'm big into automotive photography. Longtime Honda guy. That's kind of how I met Christian and Roy years ago. And I have two stepsons and my wife Heather, and we live here in Pennsylvania, not too far from where we host the show in Princeton, New Jersey. And yeah, that's about it.
Cool, man. So, dude, tell us, how did you first get into photography and then eventually cars?
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of the two have always kind of gone hand in hand. I have been into cars, I think, since I was a young kid, thanks to my dad and some other influences. And then, when I got old enough to start driving, and friends got into cars, and we both shared of several of us shared that passion, and then the photography kind of stemmed from that. Really, it was started out as simply just wanting to take pictures of our personal cars, and then kind of got interested in other types of photography and taking photos of other things and just learning kind of the craft, and picked that up as kind of another hobby, and went from there. So I mean, years ago when I first started, magazines were more prevalent, and there were a lot of other automotive magazines that have since closed up shop or are no longer in print. But I was fortunate enough to do some freelance work for some of the automotive magazines that we all used to love and read. So publications like Honda Tuning, Import Tuner, those were the first two magazines that I was fortunate enough to have some photos in. I think one of the first photos was actually a photo of a year-old EP3 in Roy's car, Roy's EP3. So that was really exciting, and kind of just went from there. So one opportunity led to the next, and I just kind of stuck with it over the years. I mean, there's been kind of times where other things in life take over, and
Absolutely.
or get busy with work and a day job, but it's always been something that I really enjoy, and love meeting different people and hearing their stories about their cars, and their love for car culture, and the stories behind some of their builds. And you kind of get a piece of that every time you meet up with someone or meet someone new and get to photograph their car for them.
I feel like that's the best part, just getting to know the owners and then eventually,
Yeah.
obviously, their car.
Yeah, so that is a huge part of it. There's obviously the photo part of it and the artistic side of it, and being able to share, I think my perspective of a car, and pieces of it that I like or that stand out to me. But then there's the owner's a big part of that, obviously,
Yeah.
and their styling and their the history and what influenced them in building a car a certain way or a certain type of car maybe. So it's always cool to get to know the owners a little bit better as you're taking photos for them, or um, writing a story too. So I've done a little bit of that over the years, and we used to do more of it, but I've done some freelance writing too to try and go hand in hand with the photos.
Cool, man. Yo, so I noticed that this year you sort of got a little bit of, of a spark to shoot more cars. Can you just
Yeah.
like tell us what set that off?
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, as you get older, priorities change. The photography and the cars have always been a big passion of mine, but they don't always pay the bills, right? I have a day job. I've worked for Johnson and Johnson now for over 10 years. That's something that I've been doing, since college, and that's my career. That's my Monday through Friday job, and very different in many ways from the car culture and the photography and artistic side of things that I enjoy doing outside of work. But I think they kind of balance each other out. So there's the corporate side of me that
And
I
then the fun
that I
side.
live, and then there's this a little bit more laid back artistic side with the photography and the cars, and being able to express yourself through the cars, and just kind of enjoy them with friends and other like-minded people. So but as far as this year goes, yeah, I guess I just here in the Northeast, with the way things are and the weather and the winters we have, we tend to have a shorter car season, if you will, or number of months that we all get out and go to events and drive our cars, or even in many ways take photos. And I think over the winter, I just had an itch, if you will, to kind of get back into it. I ended up picking up a new camera for the first time in a few years, and several years actually, and really just wanted to kind of, you know,
Test it out.
yeah, test it out, or just get back out there. And I, as a photographer, I'm sure a lot of other people out there that enjoy, whether it's cars or other types of photography, you kind of have your bucket list, or maybe a short list of places you want to go and photograph, or cars you want to photograph, whatever it might be. And I've always kind of had a list, and of friends and other people's cars that I've wanted to shoot. So this year I kind of set out to just get a little more active, get out there and shoot some of those cars that I've always wanted to, and meet up with people that I've been talking about shooting in their car for years or months, and just haven't gotten around to it. So, that there's always one of those things, like it's never ending. Like, even as if you're shooting every day, or, every weekend, whatever the case might be, there's probably still something else out there that you're striving for or want to improve on. And Yeah, I think like any skill, photography is just one of those things that with practice and with,
That's the only way to
continued
get better. Yeah.
effort, yeah, you just kind of refine your craft and find more of your style. And that's a big thing too for me, I think, is really just, one of my hopes has always been to kind of create my own style, or have a recognizable look and feel to my photos. And there's a lot of other photographers out there that I look up to that really exemplify that and have their own recognizable style, and like without a watermark, or without even looking at who posted a certain
You
image.
know whose it is.
Yeah, you can kind of because you've seen it before, and it's really unique.
Hmm.
I'm not saying I'm there yet. I don't know that I am, but it's something that I hope to continue to work on.
Speaking of you getting a new camera and and stuff, can you tell us
Sure.
your first camera setup versus like what you shoot with now? I'm sure it obviously has tremendously evolved since your
Yeah,
first.
yeah, it's crazy how much has changed. I guess when I first, I'm kind of dating myself a little, and some guys still obviously shoot film, but when I first started shooting, it was just with a point and shoot Canon ELPH that took film. So I still have a lot of printed photos, and some of the old school Advantix. I think it was called Kodak film, where you could print in like panoramic photos, and I still have a bunch of those photos that I took and printed when I was in high school, of my first car, and some of my best friends, first cars, or first few cars that we had, and just kind of messing around, and going to anything from taking pictures in our driveways to parking garages to car meets, things like that. And so yeah, I started with just a simple point and shoot film camera, and progressed from there. My first SLR was actually a Nikon. It was a Nikon D80, and that was, I guess, around late, before I graduated high school, I guess it was, and into early years of college. And I've stuck with Nikon since
That's your
then.
brand.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of other, great camera manufacturers out there. Nothing against Canon. Sony now has a big presence in the SLR market. Um, things are changing with mirrorless cameras and everything. So, I think there's something for everyone out there. I went into it thinking I would end up with a Canon SLR because I had a Canon point and shoot camera.
But it just didn't go that
And I
way,
think
huh?
one of the best pieces of advice that I got early on from someone, and I forget who said it, but it was to just go to the camera store, go to the electronics store, Best Buy, whatever, and just try and pick up or hold some of the cameras that you're looking at or that you're interested in, and see them in person and get a feel for what they feel like in your hand, and you'd be surprised. How I think those are some of the biggest differences, just like the ergonomics, the way the menus work and the settings and
It's
and
got to
um,
feel right.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, long story short, I thought I was going to end up with a Canon. I went to a store and looked at the Canon, looked at the Nikon, and the Nikon just felt right, and I liked how it felt in my hand. It fit well. It was the right weight. Whatever, and kind of went down that road, and ever since have just kind of evolved to different Nikon
How
cameras.
many Nikon bodies have you had since your D80?
I think I'm on my fourth or fifth
Okay.
now. So, every few years I've probably ended up with a new camera. I think my last one was probably the longest I've had a camera, and that was a Nikon D700. And it was just a solid camera that really never, failed me, and lasted for several years. Still have it as a backup, until I replaced it this year with a Nikon
It was just
D850.
time for an upgrade, or
Yeah, I think it was little things from just like some of the rubber pieces on the handle, the grip and the body of the camera starting to kind of fall off or peel back, and the shutter count was getting higher and higher up there, and
it was
and
time.
technologies, like we've said, come a long way over the years. So it's like every year in terms of advancements of like camera technology or TVs or any other electronics is pretty can be a pretty big difference. But for years, I didn't feel like anything that I felt like I was in a good place, and the camera I had was the D700 met my needs, was producing good images, and I did the job for me. And then it just has gotten to the point where some of the newer cameras just perform so much better in terms of like low light performance. So if you're shooting closer to dusk or early morning hours, or sunset and things like that, you really see how much better the dynamic range is on like a
Well,
newer
yeah, and then
camera.
plus like the quality is just way
Yeah, the
better.
resolution. I mean, in some ways, it's like I almost would say it's overboard for most people, right? Unless you're blowing up photos and putting them on billboards, or printing things in very high resolution. Most people probably don't need the 45, 46 megapixel cameras that are out nowadays. But so, that, and then with those come these huge file sizes, and it's like, you're running out of memory on your
Yeah,
hard drives and stuff. So they create, the new technology, as great as it is, does have some.
comes with having to upgrade other things.
Exactly, yeah, that you find out, oh, your computer can't even keep up with the file sizes or things like that. So, it's, I guess, has its pluses and minuses.
Did you? I forget. Did you keep your old body as like a backup, or you just sold it?
Yeah, no, I kept it. So I think I learned my lesson. I don't know, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I had I forget, it was, I guess I had a shoot coming up, a car that I was photographing for I think it was Super Street or Modified Magazine at the time, and the weekend before I was just out taking pictures of another car just for fun. I think it wasn't a paid gig or anything like that, and someone accidentally bumped into my tripod and knocked my camera over on its face, and long story short, the camera wasn't working properly and was having some error messages, and needed to be sent back to Nikon to have it
And you
checked
didn't
out and some
have
repairs.
something.
And at the time, that was my only camera, so it was, I ended up having to rent something just to kind of get me by. And you know not too long after that, that was when I had a Nikon D300, and not too long after that I ended up getting the D700. And at that point it was like, okay, I'm going to keep this other body once it got back from Nikon and everything was checked out and it worked again, just to have the backup. And there's just certain types of shooting where having two bodies can actually be helpful, with two different lens setups.
So you don't
So
have to keep switching them. Yeah.
yeah, I'd been doing some more motorsports type events, and having two different lens or body setups can be helpful when you're shooting something on the fly, or any type of really event photography where you know you don't want to miss certain moments, or
Because you're
because
like
you're
switching
changing
your stuff.
lenses, or
Yeah.
you're looking away
You got to
from.
be quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So ever since then, it's I've just kind of had a secondary, kept an older body as a backup just in case.
What are your favorite kind of events to shoot?
Yeah, so um good question. I guess I do really enjoy the motorsport stuff. I don't get to do it nearly as often as I'd like. Where we are here in Pennsylvania, about an hour or 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia, there are some events, annual events, or track events that are around. But typically I get out to Formula D New Jersey every year, and that's been kind of a tradition, over the past, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And I do that with some friends that also either travel with Formula D and hit pretty much all of the rounds, or local friends that are there also pretty much every year. So I kind of enjoy the action, and just the unpredictable kind of nature of like a motorsports event like
It's a
that.
lot more fun than shooting cars that are just standing still.
It can be, yeah. I mean, there's different aspects of both, the kind of motorsports and like a car show that I enjoy, and I guess the more typical car show events, I probably, I'll be honest, I do less coverage of those type of events than I maybe used to, or when we were, in the early days of Canibeat, and we were focusing more on regular event coverage. But I still enjoy that piece of it, and kind of the people again. Just when you're at a car show. I mean, when everyone's kind of there for the day for several hours, and we're either vending, or we have one of us has our cars, or multiple friends have their cars in the show. It's fun to also kind of just walk around and capture the people, or the vibe of an event. That's always can be challenging, I guess, as a photographer, to kind of really capture a feel of an event, and the atmosphere. But whether it's a car show, or motorsports, or something else, I think that's always the fun part of it.
Yeah. What about your favorite type of photography, like minus automotive, just besides automotive?
Um, it's a good one. I mean, I have a huge appreciation for people who do work with other people, whether it's model photography or just portraiture. It's not something that I've personally gravitated to, or that's come naturally to me. I've kind of dabbled in it here and there, and I certainly have my camera with me when it comes to like family events, and trying to just capture those memories around the holidays and things like that. But I guess I really do appreciate someone that can not only capture, a person in the right light or in the right setting, but also, can converse with a model or a person, and kind of coach them on maybe how to work or how to position themselves. And I think that's a whole nother skill
Yeah.
set.
Oh yeah. It's a whole lot of coordinating and
I know you've had Marcus on the podcast before, and we've known him for years through kind of cars and our background there. But it's been a lot of fun to watch him over the years, and just watch his work progress, and um, really just the talent that he has, as far as you know having really an eye for people and capturing them in so many different settings and people with different looks and different styles, and that's not easy, and it's can be a very saturated market, right? There's a lot of people out
Absolutely.
there that enjoy that type of photography and that are very skilled, but I think the fact that his work really stands out speaks to just how talented he is.
Yeah. So, dude, let's talk cars for a little bit, man. Tell
Sure.
us about your S2000.
Yeah, so I have a 2008 Honda S2000. I've had it since it'll be 8 years this December. So, had it for several years. Um, it's the longest I've owned a car. And to be honest, I don't tend to go through cars that often, though. So, it's not to say that I've had dozens of different cars. I
That's
really
how I am
haven't.
too. Yeah.
I know we have some friends some people we know that tend to have new cars every year or every other year. That's not really me, I guess. I tend to hold on to my cars a little bit longer. But yeah, the S2000's been a great car. I've really enjoyed it, and like I said, it'll be 8 years in December that I've had it, and um, it's in many ways, it's not my everyday car. It's not my daily driver, but it's also not really what I would consider a show car. In some ways, it's kind of like
In between.
a little bit of do everything. I've been on road trips with it. I've been to numerous car shows with Canibeat and with you guys, and
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 you've
then I just
tracked it.
and then I've done a few track events, or a couple, and enjoyed that side of it too. And then there's just I'll drive it to work some days, or I'll drive it on the weekends just for fun by myself or with my wife or with friends. So in that sense, it served many purposes, and enjoyed a bunch of different aspects of it. So it's kind of um, yeah, it's fun in many ways. It's a sportier car, but it's still serves many
Yeah.
purposes.
What first attracted you to Hondas, and like what has kept you into them?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I mean, I've kind of consider myself a Honda guy. That's all I've ever really owned. Even daily drivers and project cars or cars that I've modified over the years. And I think it's a common place for people to kind of be introduced to the automotive world. It's an affordable car, whether it's a Civic or an Integra or an older Acura, whatever. That it's a common place for people to start out because it's affordable, and there's just so much aftermarket support in the Honda industry. So
A
I think
ton.
that opens the doors for many different styles and interpretations, or like we were saying, many different uses, right? I mean, there's people who have Hondas that drive them to work every day, and they're just commuters and daily drivers, and then there's people who they're show cars, and they you know t- touch every nut and bolt and customize them in many different ways. So I guess I enjoy that variety, and just I think the Japanese car culture too, and just being able to kind of track down unique parts or modifications that aren't necessarily easy to find here in the U.S. And there's kind of that you know that piece of, I guess, the hunt, if you will, to find those hard parts, or the patience that's needed to kind of wait for something that you have to order from Japan,
Yeah.
and wait for it to be shipped and come in, or wait for it to be made. So yeah, I guess bunch of different things I mentioned, but I've always enjoyed the people too, and that I've met over the years, and kind of the tight knit community that we have for Hondas in the Northeast and New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. There's very popular, and a lot of good people out there that have been a part of, I guess, the Honda community that I've been fortunate enough to meet over the years.
Do you see yourself sticking to a Honda for your next car?
Um, I'm not sure. I guess like when you think of like the Honda world, right? It's at least Honda specifically. in terms of like their popular cars or their most, their performance or sports cars. Um, the S2000 was always one that I um, wanted when I was younger, and obviously couldn't afford when I was in high school, or probably had no business driving when I was in high school, or would have gotten myself in, even more trouble than I already did in my Integra. But the next one logical progression, I guess, is the NSX, right? I mean, that's the like flagship sports car in the Honda lineup, and so part of me has always loved them and for their styling, and I think they were way ahead of their time when they were in production. At least that, obviously, I'm referring to the first generation of NSXs.
Yeah.
There's now the new ones out, but yeah, I actually just had a chance to drive one for the first time recently, in older 1991 NSX, and it was fun. It was like, you after admiring them and kind of looking up to them, and someday thinking of maybe it's a possibility. It was nice to finally see what it was like in real life and get behind the wheel of one. But it is, at this point, it's a little older car, right? It's
Oh,
early
absolutely.
90s, 30-year-old car almost, depending on the year. And with that, I guess, technologies come a long way, and so it's kind of that, in my mind, it's that debate between, do I want that kind of more raw, kind of stripped down, feel of an older car, or a classic kind of car like an older NSX, or maybe even older kind of car, or do I want something newer that's
A little bit more advanced.
more
Yeah.
advanced, or has some of the more modern comfort features. So I mean, I have kind of the reliable, comfy daily driver, and then it's like, well, having maybe an older, or not as practical, fun car on the
Makes more
weekends,
sense. Yeah.
then it's not as bad if it's not something you need to drive every day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean,
I think the NSX is like at the top of like pretty much every Honda guy's like list.
yeah, it's definitely it's up there. I mean, that still to this day, it's amazing to me that an early 90s car, you look at one, and people are still wowed by them, I think, when they see them on the street, or um, when they see one out driving around. And I think that just, yeah, speaks to how like far ahead of their time they were when they were being made. And with that said, though, the S2000's hard to beat, I think, in terms of handling and performance, and just at the price point too, because
That's the biggest.
NSX
Yeah.
prices have been pretty steady, or actually in some cases probably started to go up, because we're hitting that sweet spot, I think, where people our age that grew up with the NSX as a dream car, or as with the NSX on the poster on the wall, or whatever, in their room, then they're now at a point in their lives where they can afford these cars, and they're a little bit older, and I think that that's just kind of increasing the demand for some of them. So when you can get into an S2000, which I think is a great handling car, well performing, reliable, still sporty, for a fraction of what maybe an NSX costs, it's yeah, it's hard to make that jump.
Yeah. So I know the story, but some of our listeners might not. So and let's talk about this.
Sure.
How did you first link up with Canibeat?
Yeah, so I guess it was back in 2008, 2009, that that myself and a few friends from up here in the New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania area, that were all into cars, decided we were going to make the trip down to Nashville, Tennessee, in the summer, for the annual Import Alliance summer event or meet. And that event was kind of, was very popular, still is, I think, in many ways. And at that time, a lot of people were traveling from all over the country to Nashville every summer to meet up at Nashville Super Speedway, the old NASCAR track. And Don Napier and his team were hosting um, the Import Alliance event there, and that was their biggest event of the year. and we went down there. It was my first, I guess, probably the first time I went in
Yeah.
2009, and that's when I met you and your brother Christopher and Roy and some of our now other good friends, um, from Virginia and DC area and elsewhere, right? I mean, so like I said, there were so many people coming from all over for those events back then, and yeah, we met there in Import Alliance. That was before Canibeat had really started, and I guess you and Roy had kind of started off the Can I Beat name and purchased a domain and started the website in late 2009, and that was a few months after we had met in Nashville for Import Alliance, and I had stayed in touch with you guys, and I think some point there soon after, maybe just a few weeks to a month or so after you guys had started off Can I Beat, I had come down to Virginia to hang out with you guys and take some pictures of your cars, and then one thing led to another, and I liked what you guys were doing and the idea of kind of sharing other cool cars that we found online and starting to photograph our own cars and features or event coverage, and just started contributing with you guys. And I guess in some ways I was the one of the first photographers to join the team, and that was towards the end of 2009, like I mentioned, right, kind of leading up to our winter. We stayed in touch over the winter, and then into 2010 things kind of picked up, and we were getting some traction with the website and kind of starting to find more of our own style, I think, and build more of our own original content as opposed to just kind of
Yeah.
reposting other people's photos. And yeah, then we started attending more events. I think one of the first events we actually vended at was East Coast Honda Meet
Mhm.
in Richmond, Virginia, which is Marcus's old meet that he organized. And we didn't really know what we were doing. We had pretty basic setup with tables and some of our cars and our friends' cars parked up, and we probably were asking ourselves, like, how much do we charge for stickers and
Yeah.
T-shirts and different things. But yeah, it was all a learning process. We kind of went from there, and you know to another event and another, and started traveling a little bit more. That was local to you guys, kind of in Virginia, and then we started to branch out and go to other events and get a little bit more serious about it. And at that point, I was still playing more of the role, I guess, as a photographer and helping with some of the writing or editing with some of the features, and tracking down. And then but then I started to kind of network with other photographers and start trying to get car to expand our reach, try and find some cars and um, photographers to work with that from other states or even in some cases other countries, to really start showcasing cars that people hadn't seen before, or um, you know quality photos of cars that maybe hadn't been hadn't had a nice photo shoot done before or a write up. And yeah, just really you know we stuck with that for several years. But really, I guess, back up for a second, that first year, after we had attended several people's events, we ended up going back, obviously, to Import Alliance, and I think that was a big year for us where we set up our first
Yeah,
booth
that was
at.
our first booth. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first, like, serious, effort at kind of putting together a nice booth, having several T-shirts and stickers made just for that event, and trying to have I think more of a legitimate presence than that maybe that first time we went to East Coast Honda Meet.
Yeah.
And things went well. I mean, we had tons of our friends there. That was an amazing year. I'll never forget that. And I think a lot of us, that was a trip and a show that we'll probably never forget.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
we we attended several other events later that year and throughout the summer. And I think by the end, by the time fall was rolling around or the end of the summer, we were kind of like, well, we've attended all these other events that people host in different states and different types. We went to H2O. We did some of the Honda events, kind of a variety. But I think the theme was like, okay, there's all these different types of events, some small, some large, some catered to just Japanese cars or just Hondas, some catered to European cars. But there wasn't a lot at that time that were really open to all makes and models, or that were
Everything.
bringing together people from, from different genres of different age groups. And so we said, hey, let's try and host our own event. And that's kind of what, led us to here today with First Class Fitment. And yeah, we can talk more about that
Oh
and
yeah,
kind of.
absolutely, man. So for those that don't know, like, what is First Class Fitment?
Yeah, so it's an annual car show that we host in Princeton, New Jersey. As we mentioned when we started off, it's this is our ninth event. Our first event was in October 2010, and our ninth event's coming up this weekend, and it's it's a car show and at the very basic level, but kind of to what I was alluding to just a minute ago was, it's an event that's really open to all makes and models, modern, classic, you know, very, I guess, entry level cars to supercars. We have a little bit of everything, and I think the intent was really to um, showcase a variety of quality cars in a unique venue, with people from all walks of life, different backgrounds, different age groups, and just for one day out of the year, bring people from different corners of the car community together, to just hopefully enjoy a laid back atmosphere with other like-minded people that share the love for cars, and hopefully kind of for me at least, to kind of open up people's minds and perspectives to just appreciating all different types of cars.
Not just like specific ones.
Yeah, not just the type of car that they drive or the type of car that they are into, whether it's Japanese or American or German, but really kind of seeing what else is out there, and meeting people from other parts of the community that maybe otherwise they would never meet. And I think it's just in many ways, when I think of the event and when the day comes and we're there at the airport for the show, just to kind of look around and see like the different people and different cars like parked next to each other, that maybe otherwise these people or these
Yeah.
cars would never cross paths or would never maybe have met before. And I think that's cool. I that's one of my biggest one of my favorite parts, I guess, about organizing the event and the event in general is just the you know how different people can come together and still all get along and have a good time, and hopefully appreciate, even if it's not their style or their type of car that they like, that someone else does enjoy it and has put their time and effort and money and into something else.
Tell us about your involvement with the show.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to put a label on it, I'm the events director. I'm the one who I guess kind of I don't want to say came up with the idea. Me, you, and Roy. Obviously worked together on. We as a group, Canibeat, said we wanted to host our own event and kind of just started brainstorming, and I think one of those things when you've never hosted an event before, my background and my day job have nothing to do with car shows and event organizing and promoting, and so we all were kind of starting from scratch. And I think we one of the things we observed at a lot of other events was that a lot of them were just all about size. They wanted to see how many people, how many cars they could get. And I don't want to say that was their only objective,
But it was a
but
big part of it.
yeah, and I think there's a place for that. I think anytime you can bring together such a large amount of people in the community, or just in general for an event, it's certainly changes the feel or the scale of things, right? You reach more people.
And then you're just a big show, and it's good. Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a place for that. The big crowds. I mean, there's certain events and venues, I think that caters to, right? But the other frustration I think that we had, or that I can say that I had, was that in the group in some of these larger events where you're walking around and you're going in and out of the rows of cars, or you're hanging out all day and checking out cars, um, you might there may be only there's a lot of the same car, like we said. Either maybe it's just all one genre and it becomes kind of repetitive, or maybe in the group of a huge parking lot or a huge venue, there may be only a handful of cars that really stand out to you, or that um, were those that really impressed you and caught your attention. And our being new to organizing events, we knew that we couldn't just throw together an Import Alliance scale event with thousands of people and thousands of cars. I mean, that requires a lot of resources, the right
a big
venue.
reach and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, the reach, obviously, and just having the reputation, or history that brings that many people out to an event. So we knew we had to start smaller scale, and therefore we wanted to try and find something, a unique venue, something that maybe not hadn't been done, because I mean there's so many different events out there, but just something that provided a nice backdrop for the cars, a different atmosphere than the other events that we had been attending in the Northeast and even in other parts of the country. And yeah, so that's kind of where we were in terms of brainstorming and trying to develop the show. And then I happened to, on my daily commute back and forth from home to work, I would pass the Princeton Airport every day on my way to work, and never really thought much of it. I've sat in traffic in front of the airport. I've been pulled over by cops in front of the airport. Um, Seen planes come and go. It's just a small airport where, for the most part, recreational, like people who happen to own a plane or be taking lessons to learn how to fly. That's the type of airport it is. And but when we were thinking about hosting an event, and one day I was kind of driving by the airport, I really thought, well, hey, I mean, an airport has a lot of paved surface, right? It's um, there's the hangars, which could be cool if we could maybe park cars in a hangar, or um, yeah, it just things started to click, and it sounded like, hey, maybe there's something there. But I don't know anyone that owns an airport. I don't know the people that run the Princeton Airport. So what do we do? Well, I just stopped by one day on my way home from work, walked in, and said, introduced myself, and asked, if I could speak to someone in charge or an owner. And Ken, the owner, came out and explained that who I was, and what my idea was, and just to see if he'd be interested or entertain the idea of even having, at the time, I guess, I was in my early 20s and young kid, really, and have someone come to his airport and set up a car show. And I think it's funny, we joke about it a little bit now, but I think that first year, I don't think any of us knew what to expect. He kind of, thankfully, he's like, yeah, we've had some events here before. We've never done a car show, but they've had some local, like, town type of fairs and
Yeah.
other events. And he's like, yeah, we could do something like that. And I think he thought I was just having a bunch of friends over at the airport and hanging out, and he didn't really know to what extent we were going to try and plan a show. And yeah, when he gave us the okay, that was probably in like August of 2010, and we said, okay, let's do this. We want to do it before the end of this year. We want to, like, it'll be like a great way to end our first like full year as Canibeat. And we just went with it. And we there was a lot of unknowns, things we
Oh
didn't know
yeah.
how to do, who to contact, how to communicate with people. But we figured it out. The show was much smaller then. I think it was about 125, 100, maybe 150 cars. I don't even think it was that big. And today it's closer to 400 cars. So
That's wild, man.
yeah,
Back in the day.
yeah,
So I know we get asked this a lot. Um, how did we come up with the name First Class Fitment?
yeah. So it's that's a tricky one, I guess. Another thing, I think we were just kind of throwing out ideas and brainstorming. Okay, we want to have a show, but what type of show? What do we want to cater to, and what do we want to call it? And I don't really. There's probably a file on one of our old
With
computers or
names.
piece of paper with some scribbled down notes somewhere, if we look for it. But I think we threw around a few different ideas. I mean, at the time, the whole stance and wheel fitment trend, if you will, was just starting to pick up and become a little bit more popular. And I think amongst us and our friends, we were all starting to build our cars with a little bit more aggressive wheel fitment and ride height, and just kind of, there was maybe just a little more attention obviously being paid to
To
the
that,
to
yeah.
the wheels and how they fit on the car than in the past. And I think we enjoyed that, in our group of friends. And so there was there's kind of where the fitment, I guess, piece of it came from. And then the first class was kind of, I guess, it's kind of a play on words, right?
For
It's
the
has two meanings, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, right? It's ties to the airport and the airport theme because that's where we're hosting the show. And but then it also speaks to, I think, the quality of the cars. And our saying, I guess, in one of our mottos with Canibeat and with the show has always been quality over quantity. And some of you guys who've followed us long enough or have been to the show before have seen the slogan and printed on shirts and stickers. And we really, I think, take that to heart and try and
stick
stick
by it.
to
Yeah.
stick to that. And we have over the years, I think, kept that in the back of our minds. And I think that's always kind of like a reminder, as far as even though styles change with cars and new cars have come and gone, and different trends have kind of faded out and new ones have popped up. I think our goal is always to try our best to focus on the quality of the cars and the variety too, more so than the number of cars.
Gotcha.
So we're never, I personally, I'd have no goal of making First Class Fitment, the biggest or largest show in the area, or really anywhere. I think part of what people like and what I enjoy is that it's a somewhat smaller group of cars, and that it's I guess more of like a laid back, calmer feel, I guess, for lack of a better word, than maybe the high energy, huge crowd, big thousands of cars. So yeah, it's a little bit more grassroots vibe to it.
Okay, so okay, moving on. Let's talk about the prep that goes into the show. Can you give us just like a rundown of what the prepping for the show and is involved, or what's involved with that?
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of things. I don't want to make it sound like it's more complicated than it is. At the end of the day, it's a car show, right? I mean, there's certainly a lot of different details that I cover off on and that we work on leading up to the event. Um, but those are things that I think we've learned over the years too, and some of them get a little bit easier with time, and you know what to expect because we've done it for several years. But then there's some things that are just unpredictable, and that you try and plan for and um, prepare for, like the weather, for instance, right? We can't. That's one thing that we really can't
We have no
control.
control
But
over.
so
Yeah.
we try and focus on the things that we do have control over, right? And so from just general awareness to as far as promoting the event is concerned and getting the word out, and and letting people know like everything from, it kind of starts with announcing a date, right, and just kind of helping spread the word to the registration process. And that is something that nowadays isn't so unique. There's obviously several events, not only in the Northeast, but in the U.S. and even abroad, that I think have somewhat similar, kind of registration processes where they're, you know, basically having show car or owners of cars register their cars and submit some photos or information about the vehicle, and and then as the organizers, we basically look at those registrations and then try and select the cars that we think will provide that variety that we're looking for, but also still kind of uphold that quality standard that we have for the event. And you know, thankfully we're in a position where we receive more registrations than we do have spots, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? I mean, it in some ways, we'd love to have everyone, but then, like I said before, part of what makes the show, I think, special and what some people enjoy is that, that quality
The exclusiveness of it.
yeah, the exclusiveness of it, but also just the kind of hand-picked, if you will, nature of that, registration process. It can be tough, I think, as an event organizer to manage because, it you can't please everyone, unfortunately, and um, I think some people can take it to heart and do get unfortunately upset about whether if their car isn't chosen, or um, if if their car isn't chosen for the event. But I guess it's we really try and take that personal element out of the whole registration process as much as we can. We really try and just focus on the cars and and that variety that we're speaking to. So I mean, here, for example, in the Northeast, if you're listening to this and you aren't from the area, um, you might not know this, but I mean, for example, European car culture in the Northeast is very popular, right? We have a huge Volkswagen and Audi community, and we have a huge Honda community too, right? So we could easily host an event that was just 300 or 400 Hondas or 300 or 400 Volkswagens and Audis, but our like I said, our objective, or our what we wanted to do is really bring together both, and not just those two makes and models, but others. So it for those makes and models that are very common or very popular in this area, it becomes even more competitive, right? Because then we have to select from a larger pool of cars.
Right.
The standards are maybe even a little bit higher, and the most challenging part, I think, is comparing different makes and models, right? You're comparing a Honda Civic to a guy who registers with a Liberty Walk Lamborghini, and you're two totally different
Totally different.
cars.
That's something that people just
Um,
don't understand.
well, yeah, and I mean, there's no perfect science to it. It, at the end of the day, it's a subjective process, right? We're not having a computer randomly pick you. There are humans behind the scenes that are, our a team of staff members that we trust and that have backgrounds in different types of cars and come from different parts of the community. That it's not just five Honda guys that are all sitting behind the computer saying yes and no to different cars. We try and put together a team of people that do have a diverse background and bring different perspectives to the process, so that we kind of you know we don't have tunnel vision. We're not just like looking for just one type of car.
Gotcha. You may have just answered this question, but what would you say is the hardest part in the prepping process?
Prepping, I do think the registration
Yeah.
is probably one of the hardest. There's other paperwork and permits and insurance and other things that that need to be done, and that we do have to do, to, I think, host the event every year, and make sure that, all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and that things are, um, will run smoothly. But I think the registration is, every year we get different cars. We get, you know, for the most part, we've had more cars register every year,
Oh
so it
yeah.
becomes
Yeah,
even.
this year you were telling me has been, obviously the highest number.
Yeah, this year we have had more cars register than we ever have before, and but the size of the event hasn't really grown, right? We're still hosting the show at the same venue, excuse me, and but narrowing down that pool of cars becomes very challenging, and there are cars that, that are by all means nice cars that
That would get in if we had the space, obviously.
yeah, or that, because we get more cars, the quality standard, in some ways, that gets increased or raised every year, and it becomes, a little bit more competitive, or a little bit, more challenging to narrow down that pool of cars, because the standard is, that much higher this year, maybe versus last year or a few years ago. So that's something that, it's hard. I know other people don't see that side of things, and they don't necessarily understand some of the decisions that we make, or why maybe their car wasn't picked versus another car. There, it's hard to answer those questions, because there's so many variables, right? I mean, said it a few times already, and I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but it's, the variety is a big part of it. So, you know, it's hard to compare, those vastly different cars that are
And you also don't want to have like a handful of the same cars
the
as
same
well. Yeah.
exact car, or, the very similar cars. Those, you end up really having to kind of split hairs over, okay, why this one versus that one, and we really do spend hours and hours of time, you know going back and forth, and looking at them, and looking at the photos, and, um, trying to, make as, an educated, decision as possible. That's why we have the registration process. That's why we've created, with the help of, a friend, we're using a system that allows people to upload photos and put in information. So, but sometimes we're operating with very little information, right? We maybe only have those photos that someone submitted.
And that,
So
yeah,
that's
it's
why
up to
it's,
them. Yeah.
yeah, in that way, unfortunately, some people don't realize how important it is to, put their best foot forward, and kind of submitting clear, just something, we don't need, very artistic, or even, necessarily professionally taken
It helps. It
photos,
helps, obviously. But yeah,
but having just a clear photo that shows your car well, or that, shows multiple angles of your car, or, not just one side of it, little things like that. I know, a lot of people use their phones nowadays to take most of their photos, and I'm guilty of that too, right? I mean, we all have our phones, and they have great cameras, and that's fine. Honestly, I think plenty of people submit their photos that are maybe iPhone photos, or, photos from a phone, and, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I think it's unfortunate that some people maybe miss, the opportunity to show something on their car, or a better angle of their car, um, because they rush the process, or they just don't think it's important that they submit the, better photos.
yeah.
So.
So over the years, FCF has gotten the reputation for being very selective, just like you've mentioned, because of the size and how many people apply. Can you explain to people listening that, like a little bit more about the internal process and how it has changed over the years to like what it is today?
Yeah, yeah. So, this is our ninth year. Things have certainly, we've learned over the years, and the process has evolved. It hasn't been the same every year, but, I mean, for perspective, I mean, year one, as I mentioned, right, we only had a little over 100 cars. I think maybe we had, 300 or 400 registrations. So it was still, we were still almost cutting that pool in half or more, which was difficult. But the first year, I was managing it with, people emailing us, and an Excel spreadsheet and pen and paper and printing out a lot of things with people's names and their lists. And and back then it was really relying on people just attaching photos to their email and looking at their photos. And it worked. We obviously we the event came and went, and I think it was a success, and people enjoyed it still. But it had its flaws. I mean, managing that many emails is difficult, and it's people are like waiting for answers, and you maybe miss an email, or there it just isn't the most it wasn't as organized as we would have liked it, right? And that was just because we didn't know how else to do it, and it was our
It was
first year.
it
And
was what came to mind
I think
exactly.
the second, third, and maybe fourth years, we teamed up with a friend and developed a registration system, and where we could actually have people visit our website, and we created a firstclassfitment.com, and people would visit the website, and similar to how we mentioned, they would upload photos and information about their car, and then we would receive those, and behind the scenes, myself and other staff members would look at the registrations and kind of narrow it down from there, and then be able to send responses. And um, I know we've had our issues over the years with people not getting emails, and that's been a big learning process, I think. There's just so many different types of email, different spam filters, different, some people don't check their email as frequently as others. All of those different variables that, we've tried to adapt and work around, or make the process, as easy as possible. But essentially, where we are today is we have um, we have 5 people, staff members, myself included, that like I said before, come from different backgrounds and have bring different perspectives, or different um, history, I guess, with them, as far as what types of cars they've owned and worked on, and know about or have a knowledge of. And we look through the cars, and try and vote on them, and bring and then narrow down the pool of registrations from there to which cars are we'll select for the show.
Cool, man. And and can you like just go into more detail about how it's like a yes or a no, and then we do like the maybe and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, registration. We obviously, it takes some time to get everyone to register. It doesn't all happen in one day, and we typically have registration open for at least 4 to 5 weeks, if not a little longer. And we uh, sorry, we basically start to narrow down which we put in our feedback or our votes on cars, and start to narrow it down. But it one of the tricky parts of it is, someone might register very early for the event, and someone might wait until the last second. But you don't know what cars are coming, right? Just because someone lives around the area, or has been to the show before, or maybe even says they're coming, we can't really count on those cars until they actually submit a registration and we see it. And that's kind of our sign that someone's like committed, and wants to be there and wants to come to the event. And that's when we are kind of making those decisions, and talking about the cars, and looking back at what other cars registered before them, and maybe waiting a little, and looking at what else comes in a few days later or a week later, and to just really compare, like what the total pool looks like. So when some people register and wait a few weeks, I feel for them. I appreciate their patience, because I know that I've been on that side of things too, like registering for events with my own personal car, and waiting for a response. And I understand, it can be frustrating. I guess just know that behind the scenes of whether it's First Class Fitment or maybe even other events, there's probably a lot of several people trying to deliberate over all these different cars, and pick which ones they think will be interesting for people to spectators to look at, and for that'll help increase the variety at the show, and just maybe even something new that people haven't seen before. Um, so yeah, through that deliberation process, we narrow it down, um, and then invite the cars that we'd like to have at the show.
Yeah. So obviously we've mentioned that the variety of cars plays a big role in the show.
Hmm.
Can you explain to the people listening what we normally tend to look for when approving a car?
Sure. Yeah. Again, every year we receive you know different cars, different people register. Cars obviously come and go, and people sell cars, buy new cars, build new cars. So there's always, there's no 2 years that are really the same in terms of the pool of registrations that we receive. I'm sure there are cars that, have been to the show more than once, or that have registered, multiple years.
Or even owners who have like had different cars
Yeah,
along the way as well.
that's happened too. I'm sure I can think of several people off the top of my head that have been to the show before, but have brought several different cars over the years. Um, but it's so I say that just because the while we're trying to increase the standards and make raise the bar every year if we can, um, the because the pool is a little bit different every year, then you know it, it's you can't really just because maybe you were invited to the show one year, you're not necessarily a shoe in
Guaranteed
or a
on that. Yeah.
guaranteed for the next year, because next year we might have more cars that are like yours register than we did the year before, or maybe something changed on your car from the year before. Maybe it was better, maybe it was worse. I mean, that's a subjective thing, right?
Or
Because
even more cars just like that one, but have stepped it up even more and leaving like that car. Like, yeah.
yeah, that happens. I think it's not to diminish, I think, someone else's work, or again, I we try and I know some people take it to heart, and it's not my favorite part of organizing a car show or an event. It was never, I think, my intent or any of ours to single people out, or make people feel, you know, um,
Unwanted,
unwanted, or not,
appreciated, or
worthy
whatever.
of
Yeah.
making it into a car show. It is, at the end of the day, just a car show. We're just trying to have fun, and bring some people together for a fun day at the airport every year. But yeah, so I guess, as far as what we're looking for, I think it is, it's varied. It's really like an attention to detail. It's how well is a car maintained? You know, is it rough around the edges? Is the paint in good shape? Is or maybe the paint is, maybe it's a rat rod, and maybe the car is, doesn't have paint at all, or it's rusty, or so it's hard to say. There isn't like a checklist that we have, or even like you know um, an old like judging sheet from a car show or something where we're adding up points. It's not that straightforward. I think there's a little bit more of you know a personal element to it, I guess, in the sense that there's a certain style that we tend to gravitate towards, as far as cars that have, back to that fitment piece. There's an execution side of it, right? That so you can look at all of these cars and print out their mod lists and look at how, what parts they have on their cars, and a lot of them will, they sound great and they look great on paper. They have all the quality name brand parts. They, the car sounds cool, but sometimes that doesn't translate to the actual car in person or in photos. Um, and that comes down to maybe, you know, that attention to detail, I guess, that the
And
execution,
execution. I
right?
was just
So
gonna say that. Yeah.
the how do the parts flow together? How does the car, how is the stance of the car? So people hear fitment, and I think some people, see that in the name of the event, and not to their, no fault of their own, they think, okay, this is a stance show. It's all about fitment.
That's
The
all I
car
got,
has
and
to
I'm
be,
in.
the
Yeah.
car has to be like very aggressive, or it has to be pushing the limits in terms of fitment. And that while there are some cars that we have at the show that certainly kind of check that box and fit in that category, I think, in my opinion, there's, and again, this is just me, so I'm not the, end all be all. I just run a car show. The fitment comes in so many different forms, right? So there's, I think in many ways nowadays, as we get older and as, some of the cars we grew up with are less and less common, or, some guys are restoring them and bringing some of these cars back to life that, are now 20, 30 plus years old. There's like what I would almost consider like period correct fitment, right? Just a tastefully executed car that is probably lowered, but has a full size tire and is just at a nice functional ride height. Like
Mhm.
some people see those cars at our events and they maybe scratch their heads or question, oh, that has weak fitment or isn't very aggressive. But I think there's something to be said about a tastefully modified car that maybe isn't over the top. And I guess said another way, less is more sometimes, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, you could have a huge list of modifications. You could check all the boxes maybe at some other shows, or have the audio, the interior, all the engine bay, the dress up parts. And
But the execution sucks.
yeah, or and maybe it doesn't suck, but maybe it's just
Not
like
as good.
a little over the top, or it's not we I think our group of friends and I guess the Canibeat, brand, when I know our blog isn't up now, and believe us, we've heard it all. We get the messages, and it's something that we're not very happy about, and hopefully someday we'll change that and bring it back. But another way of saying it is, if you look back at the years of features that we did for Can I Beat, from 2009 all the way through, I think, 2014, 2015, I think someone should be able to get a pretty good idea of like the type of cars that we like. And I think one of the other, going back to like when we first started with First Class Fitment, one of the, kind of guiding principles or things that we went into it wanting to do was to showcase the type of cars that same cars that we feature on our website. We wanted to bring those types of
To
cars
the
together
show,
to a
yeah.
show, right? And obviously some of those cars are, from California and from other, we mentioned other countries. So we can't bring everyone together from all around the world, but at least in our corner of the world, in the, in the Northeast here, we wanted to bring together people of that, in that niche, in that kind of less is more, tastefully modified cars. And some of them, there's this whole argument over like, oh, bags and wheels is a build, or just lowering a car and putting wheels on it isn't a build. And I get that. There isn't much to it again on paper, but some of these cars, while the mod list might not be long, there's a lot of thought and effort put into how the owner has set up the car and the look that they're going
Mhm.
for. And I don't think those people necessarily, in the past, like the trend was maybe like, having those, like when I think back to some of the early car shows I went to, Hot Import Nights years ago in Atlantic
Ugh,
City, and
mob.
you've got the cars that were in those types of shows, and that we had posters of in our rooms and things like that. They were done top to bottom, and I get it. And there was a lot of work put into most of those cars in those events, but they were very more of like a flashy kind of style, right? And whether that was just the times, or the styling at the trends during that period, there isn't, or there wasn't back in 2010 when we started, many events that catered to these like more simple, just tastefully modified cars. So that's kind of the venue that we wanted to provide for people.
So, dude, on the topic of trends, there seems to be like trends every year, obviously, and you see them, I see them, everyone sees them, but I think we see them more because we have the ability to see all the cars that register for a show.
Sure,
Um, let's talk a little bit about that.
sure.
What has been your favorite trend over the years?
Favorite. Um, I don't know about favorite. I guess, I mean, I do think there's been, because this whole stance and fitment trend has grown over the years. I think there is more attention um, to the wheels and tire fitment and ride height and how those all three of those things kind of work together. So I enjoy that piece of it, and seeing how people kind of, you could have two of the same cars, and again, on paper maybe they even have the same wheels, but like how someone, like just the littlest details, like the slightest change in ride height or tire size or camber and alignment specs, like all those little things are what like kind of really separates one car from the next for me.
Hmm.
And seeing that attention to detail become more common, I think, in our community, I think I enjoy that. But as far as other trends, I mean, obviously, people continue to push the limits in terms of, aggressive wheel fitment, and we do see that every year, and I think it's gotten progressively more and more, you know, crazy, if for lack of a better term. I mean,
Yeah.
it's people really trying to explore new possibilities in terms of how far they can push it with the wheels and alignment specs and tire sizes and stretching tires and playing with different sizes. And I can, in many ways, I enjoy all different types of cars, and I can appreciate, like, again, the effort that goes into some of them. But you know, s- part of me is also practical, and I guess questions, how enjoyable driving a car like that might be, or in some of these cars, how they're even driven.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. But um, so that's a big one. We see that year over year, and and then I guess other little things like certain accessories or things become popular this year. The roof boxes are a big one,
Yeah.
and it's for whatever reason on multiple different types of cars. People are doing the roof racks again, and roof boxes now. And probably a few years ago, people were doing bike racks or baskets and things like that, or other accessories. But those trends kind of not come and go, but certain things become popular, and then next year, like, people won't be running roof racks or the
There'll be
skyboxes.
another crazy thing that goes.
Yeah, so I think people try all different things. I mean, vinyls come a long way over the past several years,
Yeah.
and I think the material. I'm not an expert, and I don't. I've never owned a vinyl wrapped car or had any real vinyl work done to my cars, but from what I've seen and from friends that have had experience with that, it seems like the materials are getting better and maybe more affordable, or there's more people out there that are doing that type of work. um, and I think, while it's not something that I've necessarily considered doing to my own car, I think it's cool to see the technology get better.
Oh,
and
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 it's crazy how much it has advanced since we've started the show. Just even.
yeah, exactly. If you look back in 2010, there were people, vinyl wrapping their roofs black, and or doing small pieces, just accessories, but I can't even think of a car that maybe was vinyl wrapped back then, the entire car. And now it's much more common. And I think, just like anything, whether it's paint or vinyl, there's a certain level of quality, and there's certainly some vinyl jobs that maybe are not up to par, or that show their flaws, and and someone cut some corners, or you see the vinyl on the edges, and it's little things like that that stand out, that maybe don't look so great. But the same can be said about paint, right? I mean, how
Absolutely.
many
Yeah.
cars have you seen that have horrible paint jobs, or that have orange peel, or imperfections. And so there can be. I'll never forget, we had a car at FCF a few years ago, and it was an early Volkswagen Rabbit Mark One. And I'll be completely honest, I thought it was painted, and it wasn't until after the event that someone had mentioned that it was vinyl wrapped, and that I looked a little, more took some time and looked at it more closely, because the day of the event I'm running around and I'm
Yeah.
handling so many different things. I don't unfortunately get to look at all of the cars very closely and spend time at every one. And but once I finally looked at it a little bit more closely, I realized it was wrapped, and that someone, spent obviously a lot of time and energy making sure that it was, done to a very high standard, to the point where, I couldn't even tell.
That's so wild.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, when someone does that and puts the effort into it to do it right, then that's really cool.
Yeah, it
And
goes a long way too.
yeah, and I think we'll continue to see that over the years. I'm sure that technology will continue to improve, and it's a cool option for people to consider that want to change the color of their car, or they're going back and forth on it. Um, yeah.
Cool. Do you have any tips for future applicants?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on the photos. I think that's a big one, because if you take a step back and maybe try and put yourselves in our shoes, as far as Canibeat and the staff, and really anyone who's on the receiving end of your email or your registration, for any show really, that requires a registration, is if you can just try your best to showcase your car, right? If you wanted to show the best angles or the best perspective of your car, right? This is your opportunity to kind of showcase it for people. And I think just keep in mind, or don't assume that the people that are looking at your car, just that they know your car already and that they've seen it before. Maybe
Yeah,
just
someone.
because
Yeah,
you have a huge following on Instagram, or that you run a business or something else. As much as we try and stay active and up to date, and in terms of the car culture and people's cars that are out there, there's always people that we haven't seen, and cars that we've never seen in person before, maybe, that are coming from other states or farther away, that we've just, for whatever reason, we've never crossed paths, right? And so those are the ones where all we have to go by are your photos. Or if we have added in the past few years, like, a feature where someone can put in their Instagram account, because that's so popular nowadays, and people share so many of their photos and their cars on their Instagrams. That can be helpful too, right? Because I know 5 photos isn't a lot to really showcase an entire car, but if you also provide your Instagram, we can. That's what we use that for,
and we'll
right?
just like
It's
peek real
We
quickly
can
to
look
see.
and maybe see some other photos, and or if you've kind of go back and see how the car's evolved, or just different angles that maybe we couldn't see in some of the photos you uploaded to your registration. So that's very helpful. And then just we give people really a free text box to kind of share any information about their car. And I'd say there's a balance there, right? Some people um, put a ton of information in there, and maybe in some ways it's a little too much, or like they get into every little detail, down to, like, their light bulbs and little pieces of hardware, or things that maybe, while they're nice to know, it's when we're going through hundreds and hundreds of registrations, it can be helpful to just focus on, like, the key items, and the most important things, or at least start with those important things. And then if you really want to add in some of the other small details, then that's fine. But my rule of thumb is always just to kind of cover, like, the things that maybe, like, people can't see in the photos, or that aren't obvious, that maybe someone wouldn't know. Like, if you have some rare piece or part that, like, came from um, overseas, or from the
It's good
Japanese
to
or
mention that.
European
Yeah.
equivalent of your car, or if you've done some type of conversion or upgraded something, pieces like your suspension and parts that you don't see, right? Then mention those things. So try and keep it short and sweet, but don't just leave that blank either. That doesn't. If you leave it blank, or you put very basic, wheels, suspension, and body kit, or bumper, or whatever, the very vague,
Yeah.
then we have to kind of make assumptions or
Right. And
look.
then they're selling themselves short.
They can be, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in some cases there are cars that we maybe do know because we've seen them before or they've been to the show before. But even the ones that we've have been before, um, it's helpful to share some of those details that some of our staff members that are involved in the review process or in the registration process, they might not be as they might know me or they might know you, but that doesn't the other staff members that are involved in the process might not know those things.
Hmm.
So um, just because you're a friend of ours or because have been to the show before, um, I'd say just don't rush the process and just take a few minutes out of your day to try and put a little bit of information in there.
Yeah, because that goes a long way.
Yep.
Those are good tip. Those are good tips for applicants. On the flip side of things, what are your tips for anyone looking to start doing their own shows?
Yeah. I think you just have to start with a vision or a plan, and you really have to want to you have to have kind of a goal in mind or a vision of like what do you want the event to be. Never mind the name. I mean that can be important, obviously, but what are you trying to accomplish, right? Are you we talked about it a little bit before, but are you interested in just bringing together as many people and as many cars as possible, or are you just catering to a specific you know niche or make and model of car, and you want to there isn't already a show in your area or that caters to that group of people, because depending on what you're trying to do or what your vision is, kind of changes maybe the venue, the your target audience obviously changes, right? And who you're trying to market to and who you want to come to the event. So all of those things are important to I think at least starting the process of maybe organizing your own event. And then I guess aside from that, you know talk to people. No one person can really, I guess, organize an event on their own. I mean, sure, I'm sure there are people out there that do a lot of the heavy lifting for some
But they always have
events,
help for
but
like all the
yeah,
other
they
things. Yeah.
always have friends, they always have family, and as much of the planning that you can do before an event, maybe by yourself, or you can try and do everything on your own. But when that event comes around and the day shows up for your show, you can't do everything on your own. Especially if you have hundreds or thousands of people, you need a good staff, a good you need your friends and family, or you need to hire people that know what they're doing or can help. And so if you try and do everything on your own, in my experience, I don't think it works,
Yeah.
and you really do have to know how to kind of maybe delegate and work with a team of people that to try and all accomplish a common goal or a vision for an event that you have. So and then we've all been to meets and shows that weren't maybe got cut short because they a meet and someone does a burnout, or and or
God.
someone does something reckless, or maybe just that wasn't permitted, and we didn't they didn't have permission to have the event. All those little things I think go a long way. They're when you make sure you have a permit or you have permission to use a property or a venue. Those are kind of the very basic things, obviously, and some people might say, "Oh, that's common sense," but how many of those thrown together events have we all been to as car guys that where those things were overlooked, or like someone said, "Oh, we're just gonna wing it and we're all gonna like put an event out there on Facebook or wherever, Instagram," and the those events, unfortunately, sometimes like either they work for a short amount of time and then they just outgrow the space, or they get too big to manage. So trying to do the homework up front and planning to like make sure things are um, permitted and well organized, I think all go to hopefully organize running a smooth event that people enjoy.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the past. What year has been your favorite and why for a first class fitment?
That's tough. I mean, it's every year's been a little bit different, and we've had different weather over the years. We've had cold days, warm days, rain, very windy, cold days. So, and then obviously, like we've touched on before, just different cars every year, right? And the size it grew a little and has now kind of leveled out over the past few years, and we're, think using the space well at the airport. Um, so it's hard to pick a favorite. I mean, every year there's different memories, different people.
They've all been good in like their own ways. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done different awards over the years and, worked with different companies and had different vendors and sponsors that have helped us out or contributed in different ways. So, the first year obviously was very memorable because it was like just this unknown, right? Like we spent months, kind of planning this event, our first event. We didn't know what we were doing with a lot of the things that we were doing and learning as we went. And then that day came, and it was like, you just hope that people show up, right? Like, you
Yeah.
don't know if like anyone's gonna
Yeah, I
come,
remember the
right?
first show year we were like, man, are people gonna come?
Yeah, it's a huge, and every year that's a factor, right? You hope that people had fun in years past. Now that we've done it, for several years, but you don't know that, and every year different things come up. People are at different stages in their lives. People have come and go from the car community. People have families and other obligations. So, um, the first year was definitely very memorable, and I'll never forget that. But I think one of the other years that really stands out in my mind is it was 2016. Yes, 2016, and it was special because we did something a little bit different where we organized kind of a showcase within the show for rotary cars for Mazdas and really the RX-7 platform. And that came from some of our friends and people that I met in my travels and going to different car shows in Texas. And several guys from that Texas, RX-7 community, most of them based in Houston. And so shout out to the guys from the Final Form crew um, and those, but great group of guys, very cool cars. They were nice enough and passionate enough about it to make the long trip up from Houston to New Jersey for the show, and not only that, help kind of bring together other guys from the more local area in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and even farther north and south, to come out and showcase their RX-7. So I've never owned an RX-7. Don't know if I ever will, but I've always loved those cars, and it, I thought it was cool to be able to kind of bring together, not only the larger group of cars for the event that year, but also just this special group of RX-7s and have them. We try to mix up the cars within the show as far as parking is concerned. So it's not typical event in some ways where you'll see like all of the Hondas or all of the Volkswagens or all of the Civics or whatever the car is like lined up in a group. We try and mix them up together. And so this was kind of an exception to that, where we kind of lined up all of the RX-7s in a row, and it was cool to see that. And
Super
we
special.
we did a special award for them that year, where it was our favorite rotary car and part of that showcase. And so yeah, that year was definitely a unique year where we things kind of just came together, and we had the support of friends in that small RX-7 community, and they all kind of came together to you know see cars from multiple states that these guys have been friends online for years
Yeah,
and
then
talked
yeah.
online to each other, but never met in person, or never their cars would never otherwise have crossed paths and been in the same place at the same time. So that was a special year for me.
Cool, man. What about favorite build in the past?
Oh
I know
wow.
that's probably a tough one.
Yeah, that is tough. I mean, because there's like my personal, I guess cars that I've liked or that have stuck out, and then there's ones that obviously we recognize with awards and for different categories each year. Favorite build that we've had some memorable years with cars also that were some of my favorites that maybe
Didn't get
didn't win an
anything. Yeah,
award,
yeah.
right? We have a handful of awards, but we try and keep it kind of limited to, best of categories. So there's really only kind of one award for each, genre, and we don't have them broken down by manufacturer or model.
It's
So
just the best of
best
that. Yeah.
JDM, best, Euro, and so they're pretty large categories. So it is challenging to pick just one car for each of those. But um, when I think back, I guess favorite cars, geez, I don't know. I guess one car that really stood out to me, which actually did win Best of Show one year, and I believe it was 2015, possibly 2014. My years are starting to
So many of them.
blur together a little. Sometimes I have to go back and look on my photos or look online to remind myself. But it was a guy named Rick, who's from New Jersey, who has an E30 M3 that that was built primarily by AMS Auto Works in New Jersey also. And it was just one of these long-term builds that had really been gone over from top to bottom and kind of restored, but then also had some very subtle modifications to the body and other rare, European pieces that if you didn't know what you were looking at, you would just walk by or just think it's, maybe any old, not that an E30 M3 is already pretty special in its own right, but this one had kind of some of those unique touches that really stood out to me, and it was one of those cars that personally, like, I really enjoyed. But I could go on and on.
So
There's a
many
lot
of
of other
them. Yeah.
memorable cars that I've been really, excited to see at the event, in all categories really. I'd have to almost go by
Yeah.
category by category.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the automotive scene. Since we've been doing first class fitment for as we've said before for almost 10 years now. How do you feel the car scene has changed since the beginning up until now?
Yeah. I do think there's, we said early on, one of the reasons we wanted to have First Class Fitment is to kind of bring together a variety of people from different genres of cars, and I do think there are more events out there now that are catering to like a variety of different makes and models. So that that's been very positive, and I think has made things a little bit more open or broken down some of those like boundaries between, oh, you like Euro cars, so that means you have to like hate Japanese cars or some, and I'm not saying everyone was like that, and but I when I first started, in the early days, I guess, of Canibeat, I did personally feel like, at least amongst the younger crowd that we were a part of, that there were some of those boundaries between different communities within the car
Yeah.
culture.
It's
And
crazy how that's been like broken since then.
yeah, and some people like that and others, aren't, for maybe multiple reasons, or just, I don't know, aren't as happy or excited about the fact that certain events are kind of mixed and
Mhm.
have multiple genres of cars. I personally, tend to like that as just, getting to see different people and different cars. But as far as other trends go, I mean, I do think, social media has changed a lot of things, right? You know, things have certainly evolved. I mean, when we first started, Can I Beat Instagram didn't even exist.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine that now, right? Because it's such a
Big
um,
part of our
big part of the
lives.
community and people sharing their cars and photos and just yeah, people are on it all the time now. So that's certainly changed things. Sometimes I think for the better, and sometimes for the worse. I mean, I think it it allows for people to interact and to connect with people from all over the world, and almost like see that instantaneous coverage of an event or a car as it's being built. And things have certainly evolved from like the days of forums where you would share progress on a build like on a forum and upload photos to Photobucket or Flickr, and that those things where you would get kind of the updates much less frequently, and um, to now on Instagram you can kind of follow like the progress of a build or
Instantaneously,
live
yeah.
coverage from an event as it happens. And I think those things are great, and I mean that's kind of the positive side of the social media platform in general. But then there's this side of kind of like a attention seeking and people wanting to just get as much attention or as many followers or people commenting on their posts as they can. And some people on unfortunately I think go to like great lengths to do that. And it becomes a little less about the cars
Yeah, a lot
themselves
more about
and the
them. Yeah.
people like in the community and making friends and good vibes and just having a good time and having fun with it, and more about kind of like look at me, um, what I'm doing over here is cooler than this guy, or comparing people to to other people that are out there, and people that you've never even met.
Mhm.
You're just basing your opinion and judging people based on a an Instagram page or profile. And I think you can kind of get in trouble when you just start making assumptions and judging people based on a social media page,
Right.
or how they portray themselves or their lives like on
Yeah.
social media, because it can be very filtered, right? You can paint this pretty picture or you know show just one side of a story or your car, um, and then people perceive you a certain way. But yeah, I just think it's human nature, unfortunately, in some ways, for to try and as far as getting the caring more about, I guess, the followers, and for some people that's important. But I think if the people who are less concerned with that and more concerned with just having fun with their cars and their friends that enjoy cars, and hopefully bringing something positive to the community and good energy and good attitude
Yeah.
to things. I think that's you know being able to spread that like in with social media is great when you use that tool and that platform in a positive way. But when you're doing it just to like try and get the attention and maybe stir the pot, or you know um, piss people off, or whatever the case is, like when you have those ulterior motives or maybe questionable motives, then that's where things have kind of gone south, I think, in some
Yeah.
ways.
Speaking of like things going south, do you feel like the lashback towards people not getting into the show has gotten like worse over the years? And how do you like normally tend to handle that?
um I don't think it's gotten worse necessarily. I mean, I do think the social media has changed things a little, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like we said, we were managing things via email the first year. Instagram didn't even exist. So people didn't necessarily have a platform to really lash out, or maybe share their thoughts or, opinions of the show, and, voice their um, distaste with like not being selected or not getting invited to the show. Now, obviously, there's Twitter, Instagram, all these, and Facebook, obviously, and multiple platforms really for people to do that. And you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, right? We're just a group of a few guys who decided we wanted to host a car event because we enjoy cars, and we wanted to bring people together to kind of celebrate our love for cars and wrap up our season at the end of the year. And it's become a tradition, and we've just continued to try and do that every year over year. And unfortunately, because of that selective process, there are people that will get upset, and it does happen every year. And some people you know I think take it well, or take it in stride, and still come out to the event, and maybe even if their car wasn't selected, and still come out and have a good time. And I really appreciate that, because I mean, I think it says a lot about the people that and I think the effort that we put into the show, that they still want to be a part of it and come out and enjoy it with their
And also
friends.
see like what it's all about as well.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, I know people when if they're not selected for the show, and we say we hope you can still make it, or say we hope you can come out to the show still and check it out. That has nothing to do with like making money or trying to sell a ticket. In fact, like last year we started trying to give people discounts or coupon codes
Hmm.
for their spectator tickets if they registered their car and they were not selected, because I really do want people to come out and experience it and be a part of it, and more people to enjoy that. And yeah, and I think unless they do come out and see it, they don't necessarily understand the what it is we're trying to do,
Hmm.
and maybe what it is that um, makes the event a little bit different than other events, or that, and there's an event out there for everyone, right? And I'm not saying ours is perfect or that it's the best or that it's super special. It's special to me and our friends and our family, and a lot of people I think that have come out over the years have enjoyed it, which is what keeps us doing it every year. um, but some people like different styles of cars, and or um, you know just are part of a different group of friends, and so that's fine. I mean, there's plenty of other events out there that maybe they enjoy more or cater to them more, and I think that's where it's like, there's room for plenty of events, right?
Yeah. So earlier this year, we recently visited Southern California together, and we got to experience Luftgekuhlt 5, which was a really awesome show.
Yeah,
And for me personally, like it really opened up my eyes to how important like a location is for a car show.
sure.
How important do you feel Princeton Airport is to First Class Fitment and like its vibes?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I don't know. I guess it's one of those things where it's certainly changed my perspective. I think. I mean, going into it, I think, as a someone who's into photography, and as a photographer, when I'm going to shoot a car or an event, um, or if I put myself in the shoes of maybe even a fashion photographer, or model photographer, they say like location, 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 right? Like that can really change the feel of any event, any shoot, and really paints a different picture, I guess, as far as like the backdrop for a photo shoot. Or so when we go to events that are, you know, just in a parking lot, or at a stadium, or indoors, or some of them, the more common type of venues are drag strip, those kinds of things. um, I think that those have all been staples within the kind of car show community for years, and they will be for years. There's a reason for it, right? I mean, whether it's just the sheer number, the amount of space, or again, the backdrop. I mean, if you want to have an event with racing, then you've got to be at a
You
track,
gotta
or
be, yeah.
a drag strip. And so if you want to do those motorsports type of events, then those venues are that's the type of place you need to be. Um, we wanted to go more towards, obviously, that just the show, and we try and incorporate other forms of entertainment or other elements in the event than just the cars. But we wanted to provide that unique backdrop for not only photos and coverage, but for people to enjoy while they're at the event. And you know, we people say, "Oh, why don't you find a excuse me, different event or different venue, something that has more room?" And while I understand where they're coming from, I think if we tried to pick up the event and move it to a different location just because we wanted to fit more cars and more
That's not
people,
what we're trying to
it
do.
wouldn't be the same, right?
Yeah.
It would that's that unique piece of Princeton Airport, that it provides that kind of atmosphere, and the planes taking off in the background, and the helicopter rides, and people just that are customers at the airport kind of wrenching on their planes or helicopters in their hangars and hanging out. And um, you don't it'd be hard for us to get that somewhere else. And even if we, I'm not so convinced that if we, we've talked about this, me, you, and Roy, like, what if we went to another airport? Would it even be the same? And I don't know that it would, right? I
Hmm.
mean, we're fortunate enough that like we have an owner and a family at the Nuremberg family at the Princeton Airport that trust us. They
They know
they
who
they
we
enjoy
are.
having us. They appreciate that we respect the property, that people are generally respectful and don't we have, knock on wood, haven't had any incidents and over the years, and we've been well behaved kind of groups, and from an owner or property owner's perspective or venue owner, that's huge.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, in short, I mean the venue is very, very important. And that's, it's a special place for us. I mean, it's one of those things. I drove by it every day to and from work, never thought anything of it, but until you kind of take a closer look at a place, or um, explore the possibilities of a venue, then you don't know what it could be.
Yeah, man. And it's a pretty special place too, which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So FCF has quite a bit of entertainment throughout the day. Can you quickly just tell people who don't know just a little bit about what they can expect, like from an entertainment, uh, you know, point of view?
Yeah, yeah. So that's, something that's evolved over the years, and we've tried to change things up or add different forms of entertainment, recognizing that we've all been to shows where, you bring your car or you come as a spectator, and you take a lap or two and check out all the cars, and maybe that takes you an hour or two, and then what? What do I do for the rest of the day? My car's here, or my friends are here, and we've tried to add a few different things, to hopefully provide a little bit of entertainment and help, keep people engaged throughout the day and have fun. So, we I think one of the first things we did was the whole RC car drift thing, and that kind of goes hand in hand just with cars in general, and a lot of we have obviously several people that whether they bring their show car to the show and are into RC cars, or maybe it's just another opportunity for people to get involved in the show, that maybe they don't have a show car, but they're
They
into
want to be
RC
in it.
cars
Yeah.
and they want to come be a part of the event. Then we, because we have the hangars at the event and we have access to some of that space, we thought it would be cool to set up a little RC drift area for people to have fun, and not, it doesn't get very serious or competitive, but it's more of like an exhibition for people to, anyone from like a young kid who's just kind of getting into it to an older guy who's maybe a little more serious about the RC thing, to kind of just have fun. And and that varies year over year how many people we get, but we have that piece of the show,
Yep.
and then and we plan to continue to do that. And then this year, actually, we put together an award for our favorite RC car to kind of get those guys a little bit more involved. So in the past, we've had them there and we've had the RC drifting and all that, but we haven't really acknowledged some of those guys and the work that they put into like their cars and the styling. Some of them have really put a lot of effort into it. So we want to recognize someone there. And then a few years back, we started doing a b-boy battle. So I mean, for us, it's a lot more than just cars, right? I mean, there's a lot of other pieces to the car community that we're a part of, and the b-boy culture kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of guys who are into cars and into like streetwear and clothing and sneakers, and so there's kind of, that's where like the different communities kind of blend together, and I think that's something that we enjoy. So we have multiple DJs set up throughout the show, and we've done that for years, and then we thought, oh, instead of just having like this DJ here playing music on one side of the show, let's do a b-boy battle. So we've worked with Phil and Brian from 360 Flava, and they're a local b-boy group from Philadelphia and neighboring areas that have come out the past several years and kind of helped us organize a b-boy b-girl battle. And yeah, we get some other people involved again, and just some people that maybe aren't even into cars per se, but and they kind of come out and see what the show's all about, so that's fun. And yeah, I think the one other thing that's a little bit unique and that we try and do is, because we're at the airport, is we now offer helicopter rides. So there is a helicopter business that's operated out of out of the Princeton Airport, and they've been there for years, and we didn't, they come and go throughout the day sometimes at the event, and the first several years I didn't think much of it, right, or even necessarily entertain the idea of offering rides, but a few years back we started doing it, and it has been popular. I
Yeah.
think people enjoy it. It's kind of a unique opportunity to see the show from a different perspective, maybe ride in a helicopter if you've never ridden in one before. um, it's not every day that people, I guess, get that opportunity, and so we try and do that every year, and again continue to do it this
Yeah.
year.
And then we also obviously have like the DJ setup, which is like really cool.
Yeah, we our friend Jimmy and Josh and some of those guys that have come for years now as DJs. They do a great job. They mix it up every year and kind of change their setups, but they try and set up a projector screen some years and show videos and photos from previous years, and they yeah, they do a lot of cool stuff with multiple DJs playing at the same time throughout the show to try and keep the energy up. Otherwise, it can get a little quiet maybe in certain parts of the show, or yeah. So they've done a great job, and we'll have them back
Yeah.
again this year.
Cool, man. And then we also have the like wear your heat thing this year, which is pretty cool. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
so
want
I
to talk
forgot to
about that.
mention that. So I did touch on the whole sneaker thing briefly there, but a lot of us, and personally, and then our friends and other guys that are a part of the car community and that come out for the show, um, are into sneakers and sneaker culture, and so we recognize that, and we see it every year. A lot of guys wear cool sneakers and different styles, and um, we just thought it'd be another way to get not only the show car owners involved, but also our spectators and our fans. There aren't at a car show, especially when we're picking the cars that are invited to the show. We recognize that we want to try and find ways to get our fans and spectators like involved and to participate. And so we're doing this cool sneaker heat thing with the guys from the B-boy group from 360 Flava. They're also into sneakers, and they have a few guys that are going to help us kind of walk around throughout the show, pick out 3 to 5 people throughout the day that have some cool sneakers on, whether it's something newer and more limited, from more recent releases to something vintage and
Super,
kind
yeah.
of rare or old stock kind of thing. We're just encouraging people to wear their heat and wear their kicks, as opposed to maybe just keeping them locked up in the closet and then not wearing them.
And then there's like a prize for it, which is cool.
Yeah, we're gonna do just $100 cash prize. I know it's not not much, but we thought it'd be a cool way to again just get people involved, and maybe someone goes home with $100 in their pocket.
Yeah, man. Awesome. So we've been blessed over the years to have such a wide variety of like talented artists cover the event for us.
Hmm.
We it's always fortunate to have people like just to name a few people like Chris B and Anthony Halcyon and Mike Koziel and Chris Sempek and
Yeah.
Sebastian Rodriguez and like even companies like USTM Freaks and Super Street, just to name a few, have come out. And it's always cool to see people's coverage and stuff.
Yeah.
How important do you feel like good media is to a show? And then to add on to that, what do we normally tend to look for as far as like somebody who gets a media credential,
Sure.
and what are basically like what are our expectations for media, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I share the same feelings as far as, we have been very fortunate to have a lot of different people, come out over the years, and some of them have come year over year, and, we really appreciate that continued support to kind of, showcase the show and with their perspective and photos or video. And then, and we've also had some people that have made long trips to come just maybe once, and they came to check out what the event was all about for a year. And I feel I know I've had people come and stay at my own house, and we've had like you mentioned, USDM Freaks and Rio, and those guys have actually flown to the US from Japan, which is still just mind-boggling to me in some ways.
Same.
I hope, I really hope someday that we're fortunate enough to, make the trip to Japan and see what the car culture is like for ourselves in person, and hopefully maybe attend an event there, or um, see the culture, I guess, in the car community there. But um, yeah, it simply put, I think media coverage is very important. I think to help spread the awareness of the show, and share with people from other parts of the country or other states that maybe are a little further away, that wouldn't normally make the trip to a show in New Jersey. Maybe when they see a video or someone's photo
We'll
coverage,
sell them.
yeah, it gives them a better feel for what the show's all about and what it looks like and what's going on and the people and the crowd. And um, it's I mentioned earlier, it's not easy capturing kind of the vibe and the atmosphere of an event in a photo or a video, but because we have so many talented people come out each year to kind of document the event in photos and video and share that with their audiences, that helps. It's not only I find myself looking back all the time at old photos from people and videos, and it's kind of cool to see, as the organizer, how the show's evolved and how the years have been different year over year. But also, yeah, just to even read people's comments and see what people thought, and that's very rewarding for me, I guess, to see that people are willing to, and excited, in many cases, to make the trip out to do that. Being kind of a photographer myself, I know how much work can go into um, taking the photos and running around all day, and then spending time after the event, editing them and putting together them, or maybe doing a write up like
Right.
some of our friends, that do blog features on the event. That takes a lot of time and thought, and I think I really appreciate it, and I think it's an important piece of the show.
Hmm. I know we tend to do it like a little bit different than other shows, but
Yeah,
what
that's right. I
yeah,
mentioned like what we're looking
what we're
for,
looking
so
for, yeah.
sorry. Yeah,
No,
so
it's all good, dude.
um, yeah, that I mean, it's I think it's a combination of, at its core, we're looking for people that are hopefully covering the event for maybe a media outlet, or a well-established online outlet. So maybe a blog, or um, you know some type of website. And then there's also vendors and sponsors that maybe have someone that comes to the event that's covering it for them or for their media outlets as well, that we have to recognize. So there's kind of a mix or a balance there of people that are on assignment, if you will, and shooting for a media publication, like you mentioned, Super Street, or we've had Fast Car in the UK and USDM Freaks in Japan, those types of outlets. And then there are people, that especially nowadays when we don't have as many magazines around, or there are fewer maybe blogs. They're not necessarily as popular as they were several years ago, um, that are shooting but for themselves, and that's where it gets a little tricky, because
I agree, yeah.
you know we love to see photo coverage of our event, obviously, and we want to share that with people, and we want you guys as photographers and videographers to share that with your audiences. But you've saw it this year for maybe the first time, managing the media registrations, and we get a lot of, just like the cars, we get a lot of registrations for media credentials, and we have to kind of know where to draw the line, I guess, in terms of not just so much the number of people, but really like the quality and the type of work or quality of work that someone's producing. So we look at people's portfolios, and we look at their social media outlets and get a feel for their following and engagement with their audience, and you know how frequently are they posting. Is this like someone who goes to events every weekend, and that's their thing, and they have a following for event coverage, or is it someone who just is a good photographer, but is just coming to take photos for themselves. And I'll be honest, sometimes we don't ever see the photos
Right.
from some people that
Yeah.
have come out before. And that's tough because, we are giving this person, not only free access, which, that's one thing, but then we're letting them in the show early and or stay late. And you know, when we're setting up and staging the event, it tends to be easier with fewer people around. So when you add all these media people into the mix, that can kind of slow things down sometimes, or maybe take away from like the setup of the event.
Yeah.
So we take all those things into consideration, and unfortunately, like we can't grant media credentials to everyone. I think if we granted them this year, we probably would have had like almost 100 people with media credentials. That unfortunately, that's just too many people that would be there early in the morning or late at night. And you know we have to kind of narrow that pool down to people in both photo, video, and take into account their previous body of work. Have they covered the event for us before? Are they shooting for someone on assignment? All of those things, and kind of make some decisions on who we'd like to see, and who we think will provide the best quality coverage.
Yeah, I sometimes didn't feel like it's obviously not as tough as like picking the cars, but it's
Yeah.
pretty damn close. Just because there's so
Yeah.
many people doing that.
Yeah. And we encourage people to, even again, like just like someone who registers their car and maybe isn't selected for the show, we encourage those people to come out and, maybe if they registered for media and they, weren't selected or given credentials to get in for free, to still come out. And I know that's easier said than done, and it's, people get turned off when they're not, approved for a media credential. But, I do, having applied for media credentials for other larger or more well-established events and motorsports events, I think that, we're pretty laid back compared to some of these other
Oh,
events. I
absolutely. There's
mean,
some people who require like a letter of intent
yeah,
and all
exactly.
this
And I
other
don't
stuff.
think some of these guys realize that if you want to shoot at a well-established motorsport event, or larger car show, like, if you want to start talking about some of these industry type events, right, like SEMA, or going to the New York Auto Show, or covering a Formula Drift event, then there's higher expectations with those types of events. And I'm not necessarily comparing our event to those larger scale, like more corporate events, but what I am saying is, actually, I think our standards are, we're still looking for quality people, but we're actually requiring less of those
It's a
people
lot
when they
more laid back
register,
to
right?
register. Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, if you register for a Formula Drift media credential, then they're looking for a letter of intent. You're expected to follow up and provide links to your stories or your photo coverage or print media and excerpts from a magazine. Those are things that they expect to see from a photographer or a videographer after each round of Formula Drift. And we, as much as we want to see that coverage from First Class Fitment, we don't chase after you and demand to see your work. And we recognize that we're not paying you to, for most, unless it's a staff member or someone that we are hiring. Most of these people are there and kind of doing it because they love doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
So moving on now, let's talk a little bit about the layout. So it's changed over the years, and I personally myself remember all the years just based on like where we have put our booth. But
Mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit about the layout and the process of it being decided. And then I know a lot of people also, and this is a two-part question, always seem to want to know what we're gonna do with like the main hangar. So just talk a little bit about also like what we've done with that in the past, and then maybe what can we expect from it this year.
Yeah. The layout's a little tricky, and we've learned a lot over the years, I think. But essentially, the airport's a blank canvas, right? I mean, there aren't any parking spot lines painted on the ground, and it's really, it's kind of a blessing and a curse, I guess, in some ways, right? It'd be much easier if we were in a parking lot and we just said, find a spot and
Go, yeah.
park there, or even assign people to a spot, because the lines are on the ground and it's much more cut and dry. when it's, kind of a open space like we have at the airport, we really have to guide everyone in how to park, and we try and keep it as organized as we can. But it's an outdoor event. People are able to, unlike maybe an indoor show where you have people, you know, guiding people and marking off lines on the ground, or people park their cars and then the doors close and they can't turn their cars on until the end of the day. At FCF, people, it's outdoors, they can maybe move their car around, or they and we try not to,
But it
encourage
happens
that,
every year.
but it does happen. And we try and, like I mentioned earlier, we try and keep cars kind of mixed up, so it's not just like a huge clump of one type of car, or section for one genre of car. We try and mix the different makes and models, because again, I think part of the beauty of the event, and what maybe I enjoy most, is just seeing cars that you otherwise would never see next to each other or parked together, or people meeting.
Or even in just generally speaking, that atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, we, again, we try and keep the parking as organized as we can, but it is, kind of a blank canvas in terms of like how the rows are parked, and getting them all lined up right. And it is a little hectic in the morning of the event, because we don't stage all the cars the day
It
before or the
happens. Like
night
something,
before.
yeah,
So
people, yeah.
and cars are all different sizes and widths and lengths, so like getting them all lined up perfectly, it doesn't always happen. But I guess that's kind of, also kind of the hidden, or kind of the beauty of it too, right? It's not like just rows and rows of cars. We try and mix things up and park cars in different directions and different rows in different ways. And um, that's kind of, it's fun, but it does make it a little bit more challenging, I think, for our staff and for us to keep in order. As far as the main hangar, I don't know what it is about it. I think, not every day people get to go to a small airport like that and kind of hang out in that environment. And it's not even, I mean, I love the space, but in terms of when you look at all airports that are out there, it's not the fanciest or the most, top of the line, or largest in terms of size. It's just kind of a, you know Monday through Friday, it's a space where the airport stores a few planes, and they work on planes in there. And that's kind of evident when you walk in there. It's a little rough around the corners, and there's tool benches, and maybe even a plane or two still left in the hangar that we park the cars around. And it's a functioning airport at the end of the day, right? They don't close down the airport for us when we're there. They're still running. There's still customers flying their planes in and out. And we just kind of get the space for one day out of the year to kind of do what we want with it. So I think people like it in there, just because it's not every day that they get to see their car kind of parked in the hangar. And it is a little bit, we try and, we've done different things over the years. And the past few, we've tried to have kind of a theme to it, and we have done the white cars for a few different years. Part of that, I think, and people may not realize this, is purely because of, up until last year when they replaced some of the lighting in the hangar, it was kind of dimly lit in there and a little bit darker. And even from like me being a photographer, if you put a black car in a dark space or in a dimly lit building like the hangar, you're not going to be able to photograph it very well. And honestly, it's not probably the best light for that vehicle to be in, or to showcase that
Super
car.
tough, yeah.
So white, and then the white also just tends to be, when you look at all the different color cars, like white is a common color, so we can have a variety of different cars that are white. But also, like, for the most part, white is a more consistent color, like from different makes and models. So unlike a maybe yellow or another color, where like there's so many different shades of it that they wouldn't all look the same, or they'd look very different from one car to the next. White tends to just be more consistent, so it kind of look like a whiteout, if you will, of just different makes and models in the hangar. And it was a variety of cars again. I think that was cool to see, just the kind of showcasing something almost from every different genre that we have.
Cool, man.
As far as this year, we'll see. I mean, again, the pool of cars we get every year is different. Um, we have different ideas that we've thrown out there, and it really kind of comes down to who we have register, what types of cars we're looking at.
And sometimes we just make that decision like on the fly, like right
Yeah, I mean,
before.
we've had to at some, because we try and fill that space early in the morning because, it get there can be traffic, I guess, kind of in the show area with when other cars are parking throughout the other areas of the show, and it gets hard to get around them and park your car. So we try and get people in the hangar early so that that space is kind of done and parked, and then we fill out the rest of the venue, going further back towards the driveway, progressively as the morning goes on. So it's an early start, but yeah, sometimes part of it is, if someone shows up super late or
They
has
can't.
an issue with their car, unfortunately, like that does we can't hold spots like
Yeah,
we
we
we,
fill
we
them as
can.
they come in.
We do
Yeah,
have to do that, and
yeah.
that's in a perfect world, I could sit there and pick every single spot for every car if I wanted
But it
to.
just never works out
But
that way.
people just don't necessarily show up at the right time, or you know, um, yeah, people run into issues, and that's kind of the
The
nature of the
nature.
car world. Unfortunately, things come up, and cars break, or people are delayed, or there's traffic, or you name it. We've had different things happen over the years, and we try our best to get everyone in a good spot that they're happy with. But again, you can't please everyone. I mean, some people wish they were in different spots or in better locations with their friends, or at a booth or whatever, and um, we try our best to kind of mix it up to year over year. So if someone's been to the show before, they're hopefully not in like the same spot every year, just to give other people a chance at like different
Different
areas.
spots.
And we'd like to, even though the hangar, a lot of people look forward to it and hope maybe their car's in there. Um, I like to think that just to be in the event in general is special, and like just enjoy it, and
Yeah.
not don't get so caught up on like
Where?
where exactly your car might be parked, because hope if you're not happy with it this year for some reason, then hopefully next year, or just try and enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, I always tell people that like I personally think like any spot at the whole place is just a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely yeah, I think it's just this cool venue in general, and different corners and different areas of the event that have different feels or backdrops to them, and you just have to kind of appreciate them all, and try and enjoy all the different the whole show as it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So speaking of setting up the day before and then the day of,
Hmm.
just to go a little bit more in detail, what exactly goes into that? And then just a little bit of a fun question that came in, like what's something that people don't know that you find really difficult every year with the whole setting up day of, day
Hmm.
before sort of thing?
Sure. It's the day before. I mean, we all, a lot of us take off work, obviously, and try and prepare for the event. Like I said, we don't park cars the day before. We're just, we do all of that the morning of the event before we open up the show to spectators. But the actual, as far as setup goes, the day before, it's kind of a combination of um, dropping off some of our, items that we need that aren't obviously, normally at the airport, like our Canibeat, booth, and flags, and just making sure things are cleaned up, and cars that maybe, or planes that normally would be at the airport parked in a certain space that we need for the show, those things are moved and out of the way, and we're just in general in a good place and ready to go for the next day, and we don't have any kind of random unexpected things that'll come up during the show. So we're just kind of, that's part of a big part of it. And then like I said, the flags, I mean, we get up on the ladders, and we climb up and hang the big banner at the top of the main hangar, and we set up our booth, and we do try and as much as we don't outline any spots on the actual pavement or parking areas, we try and mark off our vendors and where they'll be, and try and keep things as organized as we can, so that you know the rows of cars are hopefully straight, and the vendors know where they're supposed to be parked and set up in the morning. and we do some of the work setting up the RC area so that the RC car guys can have a clean surface and a nice space to do their thing. And that's really it, I guess. It's just kind of like a day to make sure all the last minute details and things are going well at the venue. Um, and then as far as I think your other question was just around like what's the hardest
Yeah, or
part.
what's something that like a typical person wouldn't really think of that's difficult in terms of setting up day of or day before.
Yeah, I mean the day of is definitely crazier, right? I mean you have 300 to 400 cars, showing up in a narrow window of time that you need to park, but not just like park anyway, any old fashioned. Like we could just like let everyone do it themselves, but unfortunately then it would be kind of a free for all,
That's
and
not what we
probably
want.
wouldn't look the way that we want it to look. So there were there's a lot of like guidance, and the staff try and help park people and tell people how we want them. And so I mean in that regard the morning of is definitely a lot more hectic, and until you've lived through it and kind of had to park a few hundred cars in a few hours, um, in a specific areas and specific ways, and space them out hopefully evenly and all of those things. um, and also keep in mind like your capacity and how many cars you're trying to fit, and make sure you don't like park them too far apart, and all those factors. That's one of the toughest things to manage. And again, one person cannot do that. We
Mm.
have almost 30 people help us every year. um, and even that, we can't get enough good help to really help run the show. It's We couldn't do it without our friends and some of our family members that come out to help. And so that's the biggest thing with setup, I think.
Yeah, man. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about the trophies. So FCF has become really well known for its unique trophies over the years. Talk to us a little bit about the history and the evolution of the FCF trophy and what can we expect from it this year.
Yeah, so this year's going to be a little bit different. So since the very beginning, our first year, we were fortunate enough to work with our friends at CCW Wheels, or Complete Custom Wheels CCW, um, in putting together some unique awards that were made from wheels that were cut in half and mounted on wood. So if you haven't seen them, you can kind of look online or search for First Class Fitment awards, and you'll probably see a series of photos come up from different people's event coverage over the years. And those have been really special to me, and kind of a labor of love with my father and I. And my dad is an engineer by trade, but has always kind of been very handy and enjoyed like woodworking and fixing and building things on his own. And he really took it upon himself to kind of, if I was just me putting together awards every year, then I guess they wouldn't be what they are or what they have been over the years. But so we've worked with a few different wheel companies. For years it was CCW, and then CCW changed hands, and they were purchased by a different company. And we kind of had to work on our feet and try and figure out like, okay, what are we going to do? We can't get CCW wheels anymore. um, we need to find an alternative. So last year was that first year where we had to kind of scramble and figure out what we were going to do. And our friends at Rotiform, Brian and those guys, they and Jason and Anthony, between the three of them, they really stepped up and were nice enough to provide us with wheels to use for our awards. And so thankfully we were able to keep that tradition going last year for the eighth year. And we've had several other, I mentioned CCW and Rotiform, and those were the wheels, and that those are kind of the awards that I think people think of when they think of First Class Fitment. But we have also done some other unique awards with other companies that I can't forget. So we've done, our friends at Fortune Auto have been nice enough to provide us with a shock for several years, or small coilover to use for one of our categories. and our friend Rob from Ruck House, sponsored us with a Ruckus wheel that he makes for the Ruckus Awards. So we tried to cater the awards to work with different companies that fit in those categories. And that's been a lot of fun, and every year's been kind of a little bit different, and we try to mix it up with different wheels, different finishes, and different wood, and try and keep that quality going. Like I said, this year's is going to be a little different, and it's for a few reasons, but unfortunately, like I mentioned, my dad was a big part of kind of, I can get all the pieces and work with the companies, and I have friends, thankfully, that from these companies that support us, but I'm not much of a carpenter or wood, and my dad works in a machine shop type environment, and is knowledgeable in that area. So he unfortunately was out of work for several weeks. He had surgery and a hip replaced, and so this year, long story short, we won't have the wheel awards. So it feels a little weird. It was a tradition for several years. I would have loved to keep it going this year, but sometimes things come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of roll with the punches and try, and we're still going to have some cool awards that I think we're pretty excited about. And yeah, and if hopefully next year things work out, we'll try and bring back the wheel awards and do something fun, because next year will be our 10th anniversary event.
Yeah.
And we'll hopefully do something really special for that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and then you and I just got a chance to look at the awards that came in today and look pretty cool. So I'm excited for
Yep.
a change, and to see people's reactions about them and stuff, which is
Yeah.
cool. So lastly, before we close things off, man, where do you see where would you like to see the show next year, going into our 10th year, and then in the next few years to come?
Yeah, the we take each year as it comes, and we try our best to learn from each year and improve wherever we can, and no matter how small of a detail things might be, or try and make things easier for not only ourselves but also make things more simple and enjoyable for our attendees, and whether they're show car owners or spectators. So we hope to just continue to do that, and learn from our lessons and experience, but then also change things up a little with the event in small ways, or bring new entertainment, or park cars differently, and the layout changes, or changing the theme in the hangar, and all those little tweaks to kind of make each year a little bit different than the last. So we'll hopefully continue to do that, and I'm really excited. I mean, next year, I'm excited for this weekend. Obviously, just less than 2 days away,
Yeah.
but next year being 10 years is, I think, it's special. It's a lot of work, a lot of hours that have gone into the event over the years, and being a 10-year anniversary, and the fact that we hopefully keep it going for that long is something I hope to really celebrate, with our friends that will come out to the event. We're getting the rain is coming in, but yeah, and then I hope to step things up a little.
Yeah, man.
Try and bring out some special cars that maybe haven't ever been to the show before. Work with our vendors and our other friends that support the event, and try and get them more involved, and yeah, just make it one to remember, and just continue to do that. Like I said very early on in the interview, I don't think, I don't have any aspirations of making this the biggest or largest event in our area, or in the East Coast, or anywhere really. I think we have something special. It's kind of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And so there is that piece of it, where like I think we have something that works, and we'll try and keep some of those things that people know and love the same, but then there's other areas that we'll try and mix up and change and keep people on their toes. So
Yeah, and it'll be fun to kind of just sort of try and think of better ways to just like keep pushing the envelope.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
it's exciting. If we just did the same thing every year, then honestly, I don't know that we'd still be doing it.
Right.
That would get a little boring. So there is that side of it, but Yeah, so it's kind of balancing the, you know, keeping the good with, you know, the parts that work and the parts that we enjoy, and the venue, and, you know, with that special feel that people I think get in the vibe at the airport, with, you know, and then trying to continue to evolve and, you know, change with the times, the styles, the trends,
Yeah.
the
It's all about evolving and just being better.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just, you know, hopefully constant continuous improvement, and you know, no matter how small or big the change might be, like, not underestimating how, like, a small change might make for, you know, a good significant improvement in the
Yeah.
event.
Yeah, man. Cool, man. Well, so we've been, talking for a while. It's been really cool. I'm like really glad that we finally got to do this
Yeah,
after
definitely, man.
talking about this. So, I mean, I guess lastly, if you do you have any like closing thoughts or maybe some shout outs before we wrap this up?
Yeah. So, I mean, thank you for the opportunity. Like you said, I think, you know, we get a lot of questions every year,
Yeah.
and people, you know, wonder how we do certain things. So hopefully, you know, people find this a little bit, you know, helpful if they're a fan of the show, or they've registered before or come out before. And then, you know, I don't know. I just hope that maybe some people that haven't heard of the show, or, you know, or have never been able to make the trip out, that, you know, one of these years they're able to come and join us, and see what it's all about, and experience it for themselves in person. And, you know, like I touched on before, you know, I really do encourage, people that, you know, especially local people that maybe have registered, and maybe weren't chosen this year, or have been chosen before and weren't chosen this year, to, like, still, you know, try and come out and be a part of it. And I think, you know, a big part of this whole thing that we do, and the reason we do it, is kind of like, you know, the saying goes, I think, like, be the change that you want to see, right? And I'm not trying to, you know, I don't think we're trying to change the world here. It's a car show, right? It's you know, meant to be fun, and you know, an opportunity for people to come out and relax. But, you know, this is just like our way of, you know, contributing back to the car community, and you know, providing this kind of venue for people to come out and, you know, showcase their cars, and have a good time. So, um, you know, I hope people don't take it too seriously, and still, you know, come out and enjoy themselves. And then, just lastly, you know, I just would like to really just thank, you know, all the people that have come out over the years and continue to come out, not only as, you know, spectators and show car owners, but, especially our friends, and, our family. So that they're a, you know, a big part of FCF, and First Class Fitment, and also, you know, I think the success of just, you know, Canibeat in general. And you know, we call it the Canibeat crew, and, you know, without them, you know, it wouldn't be around still.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Awesome, man. Well, that's a good place to end things. So, thanks again
yeah,
for doing this. I know like I said, we've talked about doing this, and I'm glad that we finally got to like officially do this. So, this has been Christian Loza with How It's Done podcast with my guest Dave Tormey, with the special First Class Fitment edition of the podcast, and then, yeah, this Saturday at Princeton Airport, First Class Fitment 2018, the ninth show.
yep.
Come out. That's it.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Dude, that was long.
How long was that? I lost track of time.
2 hours and 34 minutes. Dude, I was getting a little concerned with like